Namo Vishnu Vraya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Deve Kauravani Vracharane Nirvishesha Srinivadi Paskatya De Siddharne. So welcome everyone. Today I'm going to read from the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, the conclusion, perfection of renunciation, text number 73. Arjuna Vacha Nashto Moha Smritir Labdva Hat Prasadan Mayachuta Ditosmi Gata Sandeha Karishe Vachanam Tava. Translation and purport by His Divine Grace, A.C. Bhaktivedanta Swami Prabhupada. Arjuna said, "My dear Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I have regained my memory by your mercy. I am now firm and free from doubt and prepared to act according to your instructions." Prabhupada's purport. The constitutional position of a living entity represented by Arjuna is that he has to act according to the order of the Supreme Lord. He is meant for self-discipline. Sri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu says that the actual position of the living entity is that of eternal servant of the Supreme Lord. Forgetting this principle, the living entity becomes conditioned by material nature. But in serving the Supreme Lord, he becomes a liberated servant of God. The living entity's constitutional position is to be a servitor. He has to serve either the illusory Maya or the Supreme Lord. He serves the Supreme Lord, he is in his normal condition. But if he prefers to serve the illusory external energy, then certainly he'll be in bondage. In illusion, the living entity is serving in this material world. He is bound by his lust and desires, yet he thinks himself as the master of the world. This is called illusion. When a person is liberated, his illusion is over, and he voluntarily surrenders unto the Supreme to act according to his desires. The last illusion, the last snare of Maya, is to trap the living entity. To trap the living entity is the proposition that he is God. The living entity thinks that he is no longer a conditioned soul, but a God. He is so unintelligent that he does not think that if he were God, then how could he be in doubt? That he does not consider. So that is the last snare of illusion. Actually, to become free from the illusory energy is to understand Krishna, the Supreme Personality of Godhead, and to agree to act according to his order. The word moha is very important in this verse. Moha refers to that which is opposed to knowledge. Actually, real knowledge is the understanding that every living entity is eternally a servitor of the Lord. But instead of thinking himself in that position, the living entity thinks that he is not a servant, that he is the master of this material world, where he wants to lord it over the material nature. That is his illusion. This illusion can be overcome by the mercy of the Lord, by the mercy of a pure devotee. When that illusion is over, one agrees to act in Krishna consciousness. Krishna consciousness is acting according to Krishna's order. A conditioned soul, illusioned by the external energy of matter, does not know that the Supreme Lord is the master who is full of knowledge and who is the proprietor of everything. Whatever he desires, he can bestow upon his devotees. He is the friend of everyone, and he is especially inclined to his devotee. He is the controller of this material nature, and of all living entities, he is also the controller of all living entities. He is also the controller of inexhaustible time, and is full of all opulences and all potencies. The Supreme Personality of Godhead can even give himself to the devotee. One who does not know him is under the spell of illusion. He does not become a devotee or a servitor of Maya. Arjuna, however, after hearing Bhagavad Gita from the Supreme Personality of Godhead, became free from illusion. He could understand that Krishna was not only his friend, but the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And he understood Krishna factually. So to study Bhagavad Gita is to understand Krishna factually. When a person is in full knowledge, he naturally surrenders to Krishna. When Arjuna understood that it was Krishna's plan to reduce the unnecessary increase of population, he agreed to fight according to Krishna's desire. He again took up his weapons, his arrows and bow to fight under the order of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. So the verse again, Arjuna Vacha, Nashta Moha Smritir Labdva, Tat Prasadam, Mayachuta, Titosmi Gata Sandeha, Parishe Vachanam Tava. Arjuna said, my dear Arjuna, Krishna, O infallible one, my illusion is now gone. I regain my memory by your mercy, and I'm now firm and free from doubt and prepared to act according to your instructions. Oma Gyana Timirandasya Gyananjana Salakaya Chaksura Militam Yena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Namo Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prasthaya Bhutale Srimate Bhaktivedanta Swami Tanamane Namaste Saraswatam Deve Auravani Pracharane Nirvishesha Shunyavadi Askatyade Satarane. The previous verse to this particular verse is that Krishna is asking Arjuna the question, Kaschit etat shutam parata, tvaya kagrena chetasa, kachit agana samoha, pranataste dhananjaya. So, kachit etat shutam parata. Basically, Krishna is asking Arjuna, have you heard this? Well, let's see. O son of Pritha, O conqueror well. Have you heard this with an attentive mind? And are your ignorance and illusions now dispelled? So here's one secret about becoming Krishna conscious, to pay attention. As we've heard in the 10 offenses against chanting the holy name, the offense above all the other offenses is inattentiveness while chanting. In other words, we become distracted by the material energy. Otherwise, one would completely focus one's mind upon Krishna if we were not distracted by our material attachments. And the secret of overcoming material attachments is to try to focus our mind, our attention upon Krishna. And when we do that properly, then we'll naturally give our love to him. Our feeling. When we feel how nice Krishna feels to be in Krishna consciousness, then we'll be inspired to feel more. In other words, when we feel how nice it is to give our love to Krishna, we want to give more love to Krishna. Now, our objective is to become conscious of Krishna. And for that, we should understand who we're trying to become conscious of and why we're not conscious of Krishna. In other words, if one's goal is to become conscious of Krishna, then we should understand who is Krishna. Who is the ones who are most conscious of Krishna, and what are their qualifications? For instance, Srimati Radharani and her followers, and all the residents of Vrindavan, they're all selfless devotees of Krishna. They have, as Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, they have no goal in life save and except to act in Krishna consciousness just to satisfy Krishna. Now that's extraordinary for because the conditioned soul, being in a material body, is distracted by that material body. In other words, we have not only a tendency, but we're accustomed to try to satisfy this material body. If we could just become as faithful a servant to Krishna as we are to this body, our life would become perfect. But of course, that's not possible all at once, because we can't give up our attachment to this body or our mind unless we develop an attachment to Krishna. So gradually, it's a gradual process of experiencing the selflessness or the loving devotion that the residents of Vrindavan have, headed by Srimati Radharani. And what they're doing is they're always trying to do something to please Krishna. So even if we may be attached to this body, as Prabhupada writes in the Bhagavad Gita, that even while one is attached to this material existence, still Krishna consciousness can be aroused by the process of devotional service. That even while remaining attached to the objects of the senses, if we try to do something to please Krishna, and gradually our attachments will diminish, and we'll become more attached to Krishna eventually than we will to sense gratification. That's called liberation. And gradually that attachment to Krishna intensifies as we experience the happiness of Krishna consciousness, until finally our natural love for Krishna awakens, and then one does not have any more attachment to this external material existence. In any case, we have to hear Bhagavad Gita and understand what our choices are, what will lead us towards that path of developing simultaneously our awareness of Krishna and our feelings towards Krishna. In other words, we have to choose someone like Srimati Radharani or Srila Prabhupada. We have to choose someone who's a selfless servant of Krishna as ideal, and then try to see what I could do to follow in their footsteps. What's within my present range of possibility, so that I can at least head in that direction. Srila Prabhupada said, if you want to find Narada Muni, then try to find his footprints and then follow them, and eventually you'll get to Narada Muni. So in the same way, of course, we chant Radhe, Radhe, and we may chant Jai Prabhupada. That's nice, but we should understand who Srimati Radharani is and who Srila Prabhupada are and what their mood is. Not try to imitate them, but try to understand that Prabhupada was not attached to any material body, nor Srimati Radharani, she doesn't have a material body. And therefore, their very mood of trying to please Krishna, from them, ecstatic prema emanates. It's not that they're thinking of something else, and ecstatic prema is just emanating from their body. No, it's their very desire to serve Krishna that prema is emanating from their body. It's their internal mood of trying to please Krishna. But that is also within our possibility, to one degree or another, of manifesting a service attitude towards Krishna. And it's not impossible. It takes some understanding, some actual experience of Krishna consciousness to some degree. So that, as Prabhupada writes, that we can have some understanding philosophically, as here Krishna is asking Arjuna as to explain what his status is in terms of his attachment to the material world and his attachment to Krishna. For instance, in the second chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, Krishna explains to Arjuna what the process of falling into Maya is. Because we may be in Maya now, but we can further fall into Maya. Being in Maya means we're in the three modes, either goodness, passion, or ignorance. And generally, it's a combination. And generally, we're switching from one mode to the next. One moment we have a halo around our heads when we walk into the temple. And then we walk out, two little horns kind of appear. And we take our tail and we try to hide it from our other devotees. So the modes are changing according to our association, according to our karma. So that's called being in Maya. But of course, being in the goodness is different from being in ignorance or passion. So we're trying to, at least by the process of devotional service, come to the platform of goodness, because in goodness we can understand things properly, and therefore we can take more consistently the proper decisions, because everything depends upon our moment-to-moment decisions. It's not that we were put into this material world and that we were unfairly treated and we're all victims. We can't do anything. The world is unkind. We're in Kali Yuga. Everyone is crazy, and maybe even I'm crazy. So what can I do? I'm a victim. Well, one thing we can do is stop being a victim and start taking control of our lives. Taking control of our lives doesn't mean only to decide to be healthy, prosperous, or whatever else we may decide. The main thing of taking control of our lives is to take control of our spiritual life, to do something to please Krishna, which means, first of all, to hear Bhagavad Gita and come to the conclusion that we're actually not the proprietors of this material world. That even this body doesn't belong to us. It actually belongs to Krishna. And everything in relation to this body also belongs to Krishna. And therefore, have the determination that I'm going to do something now to please Krishna. Please Krishna, well, let's say, have the determination at least to find out what Krishna wants me to do, and then agree to do it. I don't know Krishna that well. So what's to speak of trying to please him? But at least I know by reading Bhagavad Gita that Krishna exists, and that I myself must be an illusion. Otherwise, how can I misidentify myself with this body? If I think I'm greatly advanced in Krishna consciousness, and yet I'm in the bodily concept of life, then that's a pretty big illusion. If I was advanced in Krishna consciousness, I wouldn't have a bodily concept of life. But I have enough intelligence to understand that I have a bodily concept of life, and then I'm not that advanced in Krishna consciousness. And therefore, I should try to become advanced in Krishna consciousness a little at a time. So to do that, I just have to at least understand that the sun was not put into the sky from a big bang out of nothing. That Krishna created the sun through his agency of the material energy by empowering someone like Brahma to create a universe, at least the things that are in the universe. That this was done by a person. It didn't happen to occur by accident. And at least Krishna says in Bhagavad Gita, he's the one who did it. Someone did it. And whoever did it, the formula of Bhagavad Gita would obviously be directed towards pleasing him by following his instructions, how to get out of our present illusion. So the first illusion is that we're the controllers of the material energy. Now, it would be nice to be a controller of the material energy. Unfortunately, it's not possible for a conditioned soul to ever do that, because we can't even change one atom in the universe. The scientists say the atom is a infinitesimal particle, practically speaking, with neutrons and electrons circulating around them. So I invite everyone here right now to please think of one atom in your body and change one of the electrons, what it's doing, if you believe in that science. So please, everyone, think for a second, try to change one electron in your body, just one of them, out of the infinite number that are in your body. Just change one of them. If you're a controller, that is. Now, if you can't do that, even change one electron, how can one claim to be a controller of anything? Now, of course, we may say, well, I can control my diet. I have a choice between going to McDonald's and eating a samosa offered to Krishna. So I do have a choice. I am a controller. Yes, but without Krishna giving us the intelligence, the memory, then how will we make any choices? So we think I'm independently a controller, but I'm relying upon my memory to remind me what to do, including even to eat the samosa rather than eat the hamburger. So we're dependent upon even Krishna giving remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness. Otherwise, we can't make a proper choice. And of course, as far as moving the material nature, unless Krishna empowers us, well, actually, we don't move the material nature, but unless he gives us the intelligence or the desire, or we should say, the intelligence to desire how to move the material nature, we can't do it. Even our arms, unless Krishna gives us. If we desire to move our arms, it's up to Krishna to order the material nature to do it. We can only desire to do it. We have no direct method of doing it. If our arm is paralyzed, we can desire all we want. It's not going to go anywhere. In other words, our first business in Krishna consciousness is to understand how we're not the controller and how Krishna is the controller. And if he's the controller, then he's also the proprietor. Might makes right, as they say. Since Krishna has all the power, he has all the right to the material nature and to ourselves too. Now, that's only the first thing, that's Sambandha. To understand deeply how Krishna is the controller, how Krishna is the proprietor, and we're not the controller, and we're not the proprietors. We have minute independence we can desire, but ultimately it's up to Krishna what actually becomes manifested, either materially or spiritually. I may desire to save the whole world, but first of all, it's up to Krishna to fulfill that desire. And usually the first desire we should have is at least to save ourselves. We probably have greater opportunity to do that and to save the whole world. So the second thing is, when we want to get it, we have to find out what Krishna wants us to do with his energies, including our very selves. Therefore, Prabhupada writes in a previous verse, in this 18th chapter, the very famous verse, Manmana Bhava Mad Bhakto, Vajaji Mam Namaskuru, that always think of me, become my devotee, worship me, offer your homage unto me. The result is that you'll come to me without fail. I promise you this because you are my very dear friend. So, Prabhupada writes in the purport that one should organize one's life in such a way that throughout the whole 24 hours, one cannot help but think of Krishna. So this is called good management. Good management doesn't mean only to make a whole lot of money for Krishna, or to put everything in our place, put our clothes away, counter all the money we have. Good management means always be thinking about Krishna and never forgetting him. That's expert management. To arrange our life in such a way as that we cannot help but think of Krishna. And the Lord's promise is that anyone who does that, he's sure to go back to the spiritual world. And here, Krishna explains to ask Arjuna, have you done that? There's a short class Krishna gave Arjuna, but Krishna was just wondering, was he able to arrange his life that he was actually going to be able to think of Krishna? Now, in the second chapter, Krishna had said, Dhyayato Vishayam Pumsam. When we contemplate the objects of the senses, we become attached to them. In other words, if we're not engaged in contemplating Krishna, if we're not in Krishna consciousness, not engaged in Krishna service, then we're going to get bored. And we're going to have to look around to see what there is to contemplate. We're going to have to contemplate something. As we see in modern society means opportunity to contemplate everything except for Krishna. They have, at least in many countries, they have all these stores. And on the store, they have a window, if you have not. And in the window, there's many things to contemplate. And it's arranged in such a way, it's to attract people. You never see morose people, suffering people in the window stores. Come in here and buy this item and you'll suffer like everyone else who did. No, there's a big smiling person next to the object, the item that's being sold, with a big smiling face, inviting you, come and enjoy, come and enjoy. And of course, when you get your bill back, your credit card, the amount that you spent for it, then you wind up suffering. But they never tell you that. So the whole material world, whether it's the windows in the stores, inviting us to enjoy, or the internet, click on here and you'll be happy forever. There's bliss inside this website. So the material world means, especially in modern Kali Yuga, advertisement for things to enjoy, which may give some satisfaction temporarily, but certainly not the satisfaction we're looking for. But while contemplating the objects of the senses, we become attached to them. After all, that juicy cupcake in the store, we reminds us of our childhood, sitting and eating cupcakes, a happy time before our job, before our involvement in so many different complicated relationships. I was a happy child eating a cupcake. And so on the cupcake, there's a big smile and we become attached to it. This is where it's at. And of course, the attachment, material nature has to supply lust, because without lust, there's no intense feeling, impetus, motivation. I need that cupcake. Can't live without it. Only time separates me. And of course, if we have the money, we rush into the store. we order 2 cupcakes, one for our friend and one for ourselves, and one for our dog if we have one. So everyone's happy together. Happiness increases. And we eat the cupcake, remember our childhood, happy times. Then we need another one. And maybe another one. And every day, we're in the store reliving our happy days with the cupcakes. So that's called greed. And then one day, I get sick eating so many cupcakes, and I become very angry and disturbed that why do these people falsely advertise that the cupcake would make you happy? Instead, it made me sick. I'm a victim. I was allured by these advertisements, and now I'm a victim. And then the illusion appears because we forget exactly what led us to eating cupcakes every day. And our intelligence, how to avoid eating cupcakes and doing similar things, diminishes because we don't really look at why I was habituated to do these things, why I react like stimuli and then might have an automatic response. Because we don't try to go deeply into why we're becoming conditioned in this way. Therefore, our human intelligence is not being properly utilized, and we become a victim in another way to the material energy. A volunteer victim. Please, my dear material energy, give me something to lord it over. Give me something to control. Give me something to enjoy. If we don't have a happy family relationship, then we get a dog. And if the dog bites us, then we get a parakeet. And the parakeet says something nasty to us, we get a fish. And we imagine it's our best friend. That it smiles every time it sees me and swims near the glass of the aquarium. But this is all illusion. And the illusion is because we want to become somehow or another the center of someone's attention or something's attention. And we want to enjoy their appreciation of our false identification, of our false ego, false identification with something in this world. So Arjuna says, Nashto moha mritira ladva. My illusion has now been dispelled. So what is that illusion? Ultimately, the illusion is that we think ourselves to be separate from Krishna, at least. We don't see how we're dependent upon Krishna and how Krishna is giving us a choice either to become the path of becoming conscious of him, following the footsteps of his devotees, or following the footsteps of someone else. And there are unlimited people who act as our guides in so many different ways. Following them and becoming attached to some illusion, either in goodness or in passion or in ignorance. So we follow Krishna's directions towards, first of all, finding out from Krishna's representatives what Krishna wants us to do and how to do it, not only by their instructions, but also by their example. To choose the proper examples in our lives so that we have a leader and that we not only hear their instructions, but we see by their very lives how they're following them. And that serves as an impetus for us to follow not only their instructions, but also their example. Then gradually our memory will come back. Memory coming back is that we remember Krishna's instructions, first of all, that we'll see through the eyes of Scripture. We may not have the fantastic memory that we remember, vast numbers of slokas. But if we see things in relation to Krishna in this world, that's actually real memory. And this comes about by tat prasadam, by the mercy of Krishna and his devotees. The mercy of the examples that we hear or we see, the example of the instructions they give us to bring us closer to Krishna. This is all mercy coming from Krishna and his devotees, ultimately from his pure devotees. And as we become closer to Krishna and his devotees, then we'll be less anxious over deviations from devotional service and more enthusiastic and more clear how to make progress in devotional service. What is actually the examples that we're trying to follow? When Srimati Radharani and her friends get together, they ask Srimati Radharani about her devotion to Krishna. And that's in the Shikshastika. Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Krishna himself, was interested in experiencing the mood of Srimati Radharani. Therefore, at the end of Shikshastika, he says that Ashisha papadam panishtamam adarshanam mahatam karotava yatata vidatu lampato matprana natastu saeva naparaha. That more or less, that whatever Krishna wants to do, that's fine. But I'm always his eternal servant. I have no other desire than to simply please him. I simply want to remain his eternal servant in any circumstance. This is not artificial because Krishna is a reservoir of all pleasure. If one is feeling unlimited pleasure, then externally, whatever happens is not very important. But that mood of feeling unlimited pleasure coming from Krishna is only possible when one actually has that inner desire to please him. And that inner desire has to be cultivated gradually, beginning with Srinada peace and Ichena. That is understanding our real position. That it is not just a theory that we're Krishna's eternal servants. It's a reality. It's a reality that without Krishna giving us remembrance, knowledge, and forgetfulness, we can't do anything. And that real remembrance is to remember what Krishna wants us to do, either from Guru or Sadhu or from Shastra or from the Supersoul within our heart. And that everything here belongs to Krishna. That's also part of memory. And the more we remember things in relation to Krishna, then naturally we'll become humble. Because Krishna is so unlimitedly wonderful, then naturally we'll feel humble. So humility is the beginning of love. Even one has a dog, if the dog is friendly and licks one and jumps up and down when one sees one falls in love even with the dog. And then even in relation to the dog, one feels himself to be a servant, although it's just a dog. But because one is in love with the dog, as Prabhupada said, then we'll take the dog out to the street, and as the dog is passing stool and urine, one will patiently stand there to serve the dog. Now, that relation with the dog has an element of love and also has an element of humility. Otherwise, unless you love the dog, how could you stand there when it's passing stool? And in some places, you even have to pick up the stool. So similarly, as we appreciate, just even theoretically, how Krishna is controlling everything and how Krishna is actually doing it for our benefit, in that awe and reverence, then naturally we'll feel a little humble. Humility is not a product of artificially denying our position or lack of self-esteem. Humility is simply becoming aware of reality. And then when out of reality, we find out that Krishna is not only unlimited, but he's unlimitedly wonderful. He's unlimitedly kind. He's unlimitedly beautiful. He's unlimitedly affectionate to his devotees. Then naturally we'll fall in love with Krishna because he's unlimitedly attractive. And as we become attached to Krishna with some humility, understanding how wonderful he is, then naturally we'll be able to tolerate things that are distracting us from Krishna. And then we'll be able to appreciate how others are also engaged in serving Krishna or have the potential to serve Krishna. And we'll be able to appreciate how they're serving Krishna, and that will become our examples to follow. And we'll understand that whatever good I can do now in this material world, or even in the spiritual world, is only because I found good examples, because I got instructions from others how to find good examples and the inspiration to follow those good examples. And therefore, I gradually made progress in devotional service, and Krishna gradually revealed himself to me. Therefore, one can always honor others and not become interested in finding honor for oneself. And if we follow the Shikshastra, go from one point to another, eventually, as that intensifies, we come to where Arjuna is saying here that I'm simply a servant of the great devotees, and in service to them, I know how to serve everyone else. And therefore, in every relationship I have, I remain a servant of the great devotees. And whatever I'm doing, I serve the great devotees because that pleases Krishna. So I have nothing in this world or any world except to please Krishna. And therefore, by understanding what will please Krishna, my memory has been restored, my illusion is gone, and therefore I'm prepared to do something for Krishna. It doesn't exactly matter, in one sense, what we've been asked to do in service to Krishna. When Lord Ramachandra was building the bridge to Lanka, then Hanuman was picking up big boulders and throwing them into the ocean to help build the bridge. But one squirrel was helping Lord Ramachandra by picking up little pebbles and also throwing them into the water to help build the bridge. So Hanuman didn't want to step on the squirrel. So I told the squirrel to please get out of his way because he was doing some important service to Lord Ramachandra. So when Lord Ramachandra saw that Hanuman was discouraging the squirrel from doing his service, immediately he chastised Hanuman. That you don't understand, Hanuman. That as far as I'm concerned, that the important service is a service that's meant to please me. And since the squirrel is trying the best he can to please me, equally as you're trying to do, therefore, as far as I'm concerned, the service of the squirrel is equal to your service. So we should understand that the goal of our service is to please Krishna. Whether it's so-called big service or a little service, that if we're doing some service to please Krishna, then Krishna is equally pleased by our service desire to please him. And if we see the devotees doing some service, then we should also be pleased that Krishna is pleased by their service, and therefore try to cooperate with them and help them in their service. That will please Krishna more than any other service we can do individually. So Arjuna woke up, and Krishna gives us the path in the Bhagavad Gita, how we can also wake up. This is the same path that every devotee who has been conditioned by the material nature and woke up follows. And we follow that same path, we'll also wake up, become Krishna conscious. So thank you. I'll stop there. Are there any questions? Comments?
That's it.
Okay, we have Parthasarthi. Is that you, Parthasarthi?
Thank you so much for the class. I was reading from Mahatma Prabhu that second initiation is the real initiation. Then I heard from devotees that say that in the first initiation, the disciple accepts the spiritual master, but in the second initiation, the spiritual master accepts the disciple. How this works, or how true is that? Because as far as I remember, the connection is established at the time of Diksha of the first initiation. So the guru accepts the disciples in the first initiation, but how true is that in the first initiation the disciple accepts the guru, and in the second initiation the guru accepts the disciple?
Sounds like good theory.
Okay.
Unfortunately, many times it's just theory. Now, with or without initiation, if we actually accepted someone as their eternal servant, a devotee, then our lives would automatically be perfect, especially if that devotee was connected with our disciple succession. The point is that when we take initiation and vow to chant 16 rounds and follow the four regular principles, and if the idea is we're accepting this devotee to be as good as God, and we're willing to follow their instructions, then our lives would be perfect. But the point is that in the course of time, we show our perfection and our willingness to follow the principles and develop a service attitude by coming closer to the mode of goodness. And therefore, we might accept, or we might be given second initiation and try to develop the Brahminical qualifications. Now, even without formally being given second initiation, there's no barrier to developing the Brahminical qualities, such as truthfulness and cleanliness and spiritual knowledge. There's no barrier to do that. So in one sense, the second initiation is simply an acknowledgement of the fact that we're actually trying to do that. And we've come closer to doing that than when we first took first initiation. Other than that, everything depends upon our development of a service attitude. Service attitude doesn't mean, as Prabhupada writes, blind following and absurd inquiries are condemned. One should not only hear submissively, but one should get a clear understanding through service, submission, and inquiry. So it's not just a formality that we finally got the sacred thread and we're back to Godhead because we've been accepted. No, Krishna will accept us not only when we try to at least hear submissively, but then we also get a clear understanding through submission, service, and inquiry. That clear understanding, Didami buddhi yogam tam, comes when Krishna sees that we're willing to be constantly engaged in his service and worship him with love. Then he gives us the clear understanding by which we can come to him. That's what we're aiming for, not designations. We're aiming for sincerity, to actually becoming a sincere servant of Krishna's servants. The spiritual master can direct us and give us inspiration so that we can start seeing everyone and everything in relation to Krishna and work accordingly. But that's up to us to follow those instructions and example. Not only the example instructions from the initiating spiritual master, but from everyone we can understand is how is connected with our acharyas in disciple succession, who's actually following the previous acharya sincerely and giving us the same instructions that they'd give us. Then Didami Buddhi Yogam Tam, Krishna will give us the clear understanding of which we can come to him. And that will lead to the perfection of our life in Krishna consciousness. So in one sense, we shouldn't worry about second initiation, and we should worry about whether I'm actually making advancement towards my goal in life, to become a sincere servant of Krishna and his devotees. Appropriately. In other words, a sincere servant of Krishna knows what Krishna actually wants and sincerely tries to follow that. Then everything else will be there. And if we go back to the spiritual world and we happen to be a cowherd boy, they're not Brahmins. You think, well, I was a Brahmin. I worked so hard to become a Brahmin. Now I wind up to be a cowherd boy. Maybe I should go back to the material world again. At least there I was a Brahmin. But here I'm just a cowherd boy. No more fire sacrifices. I'm just herding cows all day long. But one is in love with Krishna. One is herding the cows for Krishna. And Krishna is unlimitedly affectionate. And even the cows are affectionate. So one is absorbed in love of Krishna and his devotees there. So probably one won't complain that he doesn't have a sacred thread. Anything
Maharaj,
else?
we have some questions in the chat. Is it okay? I will translate for you.
Sure.
Okay, so Hare Krishna, please accept my obeisances. This is from Lisa. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. Thank you so much for giving interactions with you on the internet so often. Could you please tell me what would be the proof that Krishna gave me his mercy, that it's not just the I am in the Blaggest. I'm not in the Blaggest, and that's what happens. So
Bliss.
and
Bliss.
how to
Bliss.
yeah, bliss. So how to react when I get the mercy? If the mercy is without any cause or reason, I am very scared that later I will get the bill that I cannot repay. If I have doubts in my mind that Krishna is doing it without expecting anything in return, but this world has been made by him for our enjoyment. He created it. She says it's a doubt. He created it so we will be disappointed in our desires and get back to him.
Yes, that's true. But
Да,
in any
это
case,
правда. Но в любом случае. Oops, sorry.
in Bhagavad Gita, the mercy coming from Krishna doesn't come completely causeless. There's no material cause. Cause is spiritual. And that spiritual cause is following the instructions and example of Krishna's devotees who are attached to Krishna. Then Krishna gives us his mercy. If we become a servant of Krishna's servants, then Krishna gives us his mercy. And if we don't become the servant of Krishna's servants, then the mercy will not be there. That's all. And to worry about if we're in bliss, well, if Krishna gives us some mercy and we're in bliss, our heart becomes a little purified, then we're obligated to serve him a little bit more. We're also inspired to do that. But it wasn't that at the end of life, the Vaikuntha airplane comes and they take out a list of bliss that they gave us and ask us, do you have a payment for it? And we say, well, I'm sorry, I gave everything to the temple. I have nothing left. They say, so sorry. Next lifetime we'll come back and bring you back to the spiritual world. Try and save up some money for your next lifetime. And when we come, you can pay us for the fare to go back to Vaikuntha. No, the only payment we have to Krishna is to try to please him more. With the bliss he gave us, with the realizations we have that we're his eternal servants of Krishna, that our only obligation is to try to do more service for Krishna and his devotees. That's all. Krishna feels that he's eternally obligated to his devotees for their service. And the devotees feel they're eternally obligated to Krishna's servants for the opportunity to serve them. So don't think we should have, in the spiritual world, including the spiritual world, no one feels that they ever have been repaid the debt sufficiently to have the opportunity to serve Krishna and his devotees. They always feel like they're indebted. And the only way to repay the debt is to do more service for them. At least try to.
Больше служения для него. Maharaj, one more question. What is the correct definition of being humble?
Understand Krishna's glories and how wonderful him and his devotees are. And in comparison, understand that all we are, our whole existence, is simply meant to please them. Whatever opulence, whatever we have is simply meant because we're meant to please these wonderful devotees in Krishna. And therefore, real humility is that one feels himself, compared to their wonderful glories and qualities, insignificant. As like in the spiritual world, everyone there is beautiful. Everyone there has unlimited opulence, but they think themselves to simply be an insignificant beggar, begging to serve the devotees in Krishna, to make them happy. Otherwise, one feels oneself to be neglected, despite whatever opulence one may have. Without the opportunity to serve Krishna and his devotees, one feels oneself to be neglected. So that's real humility. Anything else?
I have a small question just about Prabhupada's preaching. All glories to Srila Prabhupada. I just want to know, like Prabhupada says about the daily bread, and he says the Christians, and I was thinking that when Jesus was saying this thing about the daily bread, he was actually meant for that we are always concerned about the future and so worried, and we should just stay in the present, just give us our daily bread. There's just today, care for today. So actually, and of course it's been misinterpreted with time, but why? So how should we see it that Prabhupada actually speaks against it?
Oh, Prabhupada didn't speak against it. He just said that it's a very limited conception of God. First of all, Jesus Christ, he was praying, my dear Father, please give us our daily bread. He was teaching his followers to depend upon Krishna. So what's wrong with that? We also say the same thing. Sharira Vijayal Vitendriya Taikal Yuvali Saisuri. We also say that Krishna, we also appreciate that Krishna is giving us whatever we have, including our daily bread. But we're not limited to that. We're not only asking Krishna for our daily bread, we're also asking for the opportunity to please him and serve him. Prabhupada never criticized the Christian religion or any other religion. He just criticized if they weren't following their religion, that's all. He certainly didn't criticize the prayer to the Supreme Lord, even if the prayer wasn't in full love of God, but it was on the path to love of God, depending on Krishna. Prabhupada gave the example. Then in the communist country, the peasants, the communists came to the peasants and said, who's better, your God or ourselves? So the communists said, go to church and pray to God, please just give us our daily bread. So the peasants went to church, prayed to God, please give us our daily bread. And then they came back to the communists, and the communists said, so did God give you your daily bread? And they said, no, not yet. So then the communists said, please pray to us to give us your daily bread. So they prayed, my dear communist friends, please give us our daily bread. So the communists called for trucks of bread to come and distributed it to the peasants. So then the communists asked, so who's better? Your God's better or we're better? So they said, my dear communist friends, you're better because you're giving us our daily bread. But Prabhupada said, if I was there, I'd ask the communists, where did you get the bread from? So everyone is actually depending upon Krishna, but sometimes people take the credit for what Krishna gave them, claiming that they made it themselves. But they can't even make one atom in this universe. It's all coming from Krishna.
Thank you.
Hare Krishna, Grantaraj Bhagavad Gita ki jai, Srila Prabhupada ki. What's that?
What?
Hare Krishna.
Hare
Srila
Krishna,
Prabhupada ki
Gurudev.
jai.
Gurudev, we reached Maya for
Hare
Glory to
Krishna.
Prabhupada. Hare Krishna.
Prahladananda Swami Maharaj ki.
Hare Krishna.
Yeah.
Some of
Hare Krishna.